The story starts from Captain Marcus Reed, a man who doesn't believe in ghosts, doesn't believe in coincidences, and certainly doesn't believe in the impossible. But what happened in the jungles of San Cristobal would challenge everything he thought he knew about reality, memory, and the thin line between the living and the dead. Welcome to the real conflict zone. Marcus Reed had been running Black Ops for 12 years. 12 years of missions that didn't exist, in countries that weren't on any official record, with men whose names would never appear on any memorial wall. He'd seen things that would break most people. He'd done things that kept him awake at night. But he'd never seen anything like this. The briefing came on a Tuesday, which Marcus always thought was the worst day for a mission. Not dramatic enough for a Monday, not close enough to the weekend to feel like you had something to look forward to. Just Tuesday. Gray, forgettable Tuesday. The operation was supposed to be simple. 6 men. 72 hours. Deep jungle insertion to recover a high-value asset, a defected scientist with information about a bioweapon being developed by a rogue faction in San Cristobal. Get in, grab him, get out. No engagement if possible. Ghost protocol all the way. Marcus selected his team carefully. There was Lieutenant James Torres, his second-in-command, a man who could read a jungle like most people read a newspaper. Torres had grown up in the Amazon, the son of a Brazilian ecologist, and he moved through dense vegetation like water through stones. The man had a gift for survival that went beyond training. He could smell water from a mile away, could identify which plants were edible and which would kill you in minutes, could track movement through terrain that looked untouched to everyone else. Torres was 32, built like a middleweight boxer, with dark hair he kept military short and eyes that never stopped scanning. He'd saved Marcus's life in Colombia 3 years back, pulling him out of a river during an extraction gone wrong. Since then, they'd been through 17 missions together. 17 times into hell and back. Then there was Sergeant David Park, their communications specialist, a quiet Korean-American kid from Seattle who could hack into any system and somehow always knew when the radios were about to fail. Park was 26, looked about 19, and had the kind of baby face that made enemy combatants underestimate him right up until he dismantled their entire digital infrastructure. He'd grown up as a gaming prodigy, one of those kids who could see patterns in code that looked like chaos to everyone else. The military had recruited him straight out of MIT, where he'd been working on his doctorate in computer science. He spoke 5 languages fluently and could understand the basics of a dozen more. Park didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. He had this way of explaining complex technical problems in simple terms, using metaphors about video games that somehow made perfect sense. Corporal Michael Reaper Johnson was their marksman, 6'4" of calculated lethality, who once made a shot at 2,000 meters in a sandstorm. Johnson was from Montana, raised on a ranch where shooting wasn't a sport but a necessity. He'd been hunting since he was 6 years old, and by the time he joined the military at 18, he could outshoot instructors with twice his experience. Johnson was 30 now, with prematurely gray hair that had earned him his nickname, that and his habit of appearing out of nowhere during firefights, dropping targets before anyone knew he was there. He had pale blue eyes that seemed to look through things rather than at them, calculating distances and wind speeds and bullet trajectories automatically, constantly. Off-duty, Johnson was the quietest man Marcus had ever met, often going days without saying more than a handful of words. But on mission, his voice over the comm was steady, calm, precise. Target down were the 2 words Marcus heard most often from him, and they were always welcome. Private First Class Anthony Martinez was their medic, fast-talking and faster-thinking, who'd saved more lives with a field kit than most surgeons saved in a hospital. Martinez was from Miami, the son of Cuban immigrants, and he'd grown up wanting to be a doctor. He'd made it through 2 years of medical school before his family's restaurant business collapsed and he couldn't afford tuition anymore. The military offered him a way to keep practicing medicine, and he'd taken it. Martinez was 28, built compact and solid, with hands that were surprisingly delicate for someone who could also field strip a rifle in 30 seconds flat. He talked constantly, a running commentary of observations, jokes, medical advice, random facts about whatever country they were operating in. Some people found it annoying. Marcus found it comforting. As long as Martinez was talking, things were okay. It was when Martinez went silent that you needed to worry. And finally, there was Specialist Sarah Chen, demolitions expert and the newest member of the team, but already proving herself as someone who could stay ice-cold when everything was falling apart. Chen was 25, from San Francisco, a third-generation Chinese-American who'd shocked her family by joining the military instead of going into the family law practice. She had a master's degree in chemical engineering from Stanford and had been recruited specifically for her expertise in explosive compounds. Chen was small, barely 5'3", but she could carry her own weight and equipment and had the kind of focused intensity that made people give her space when she was working. She'd been with the team for 6 months, and in that time, she'd proven herself in ways that went beyond technical skill. Chen had nerves of steel. Marcus had seen her defuse a bomb with 2 seconds left on the timer, her hands perfectly steady, her breathing calm. When she'd finished, she'd looked up at him and said, "That was closer than I like," and then she'd gone back to checking her equipment like nothing had happened. 6 people. 6 names on the roster. 6 photographs in the mission file. 6 sets of gear prepared. 6 seats on the helicopter that would take them to the drop zone. Marcus had reviewed each file a dozen times, memorized every strength and weakness, every skill set and limitation. This was his team. These were his people. And he was responsible for bringing every single one of them home. The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Artemis was a converted shipping container with a digital projector and a map table. Colonel Sarah Hendricks ran the briefing herself, which meant this was bigger than Marcus had initially thought. Hendricks was in her late 40s, a career officer who'd worked her way up through intelligence before transitioning to Special Operations Command. She had steel-gray hair cut in a severe bob, sharp features, and eyes that missed nothing. She'd been a case officer with the CIA before joining the military, and she still had that spook mentality. Everything was compartmentalized, everyone was on a need-to-know basis, and trust was something you earned in microscopic increments. "Gentlemen, lady," Hendricks began, nodding to Chen. "This is a priority extraction. The asset is Dr. Ramon Salazar, formerly of the San Cristobal National Research Institute. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Salazar contacted us through intermediaries, claiming he had information about a weaponized pathogen being developed by General Marcos Rivera's regime. We're talking about a hemorrhagic fever variant, potentially worse than Ebola, designed for aerosol deployment." Park whistled softly. "That's nightmare scenario stuff." "Indeed. Dr. Salazar claims he has samples of the pathogen, detailed notes on its development, and names of everyone involved in the project. He wants asylum. We want everything he knows. The problem is that Rivera's intelligence service knows Salazar contacted us. They're hunting him. Last communication we had was 48 hours ago. He's hiding in a village called Santa Elena, 20 kilometers into the interior from the coast. Dense jungle, minimal infrastructure, and Rivera has been moving troops through the area." Torres studied the map. "What's our extraction timeline?" 72 hours from insertion. "Get in, make contact, secure the asset, get out. Rivera's people have patrols throughout the region, so you'll need to move fast and stay quiet. Air support will be limited, we can't risk an international incident if you're discovered. This is completely off books." "Plausible deniability," Johnson said flatly. "Exactly. If you're captured, the United States government will disavow all knowledge of your presence. You're not there. This mission isn't happening. Dr. Salazar is just another political refugee seeking asylum. We clear?" Everyone nodded. This was standard operating procedure for Black Ops. You accepted that if things went wrong, you were on your own. No rescue missions. No prisoner exchanges. You either completed the mission or you disappeared. Hendricks continued. "Insertion will be by helicopter at 0300 hours tomorrow. We'll drop you 20 kilometers from Santa Elena. Captain Reed will have tactical command. You'll have satellite communication, but use it sparingly. We have to assume Rivera's people are monitoring frequencies. Questions?" Chen raised her hand. "Rules of engagement. Avoid contact if possible. If engaged, return fire and extract. This is a retrieval mission, not a combat operation. We want Dr. Salazar and his information. Everything else is secondary." Martinez spoke up. "What about the locals? Can we trust them?" "Assume you can't. Rivera has informants everywhere. The village where Salazar is hiding has been sympathetic to refugees, but that could Change if Rivera offers enough money. Trust no one. Except the asset. The briefing continued for another hour, covering emergency extraction points, communication protocols, weather conditions, and intelligence updates on Rivera's troop movements. By the time Hendricks dismissed them, Marcus had the mission mapped out in his mind. It was straightforward, which made him nervous. In his experience, straightforward missions had a way of becoming complicated very quickly. That evening, Marcus found himself in the base gym, running on a treadmill and trying to quiet his mind. Pre-mission jitters were normal. He'd learned long ago not to fight them but to channel them into preparation. He mentally rehearsed the mission, looking for potential problems, planning contingencies. The insertion would be the easy part. They'd done night jumps into hostile territory dozens of times. The hard part would be moving through 20 kilometers of jungle in darkness, reaching Santa Elena without being detected, making contact with Salazar, and then getting back out with a civilian in tow. Civilians were unpredictable. They panicked. They made noise. They slowed you down. And if Rivera's people found them first? You're overthinking it, Torres said, climbing onto the treadmill next to him. That's my job. I overthink so you don't have to. We've done harder missions than this. Remember Venezuela? That was supposed to be a nightmare, and we walked out without a scratch. We also lost 2 days because our intelligence was wrong and the target had moved. But we adapted. That's what we do. Torres adjusted his speed. Your mind is somewhere else. Tonight. What's bothering you? Marcus considered lying, then decided against it. Torres could always tell. I've got a bad feeling about this one. Nothing specific. Just a feeling. Your feelings are usually right. So we'll be extra careful. We'll watch each other's backs like always. And we'll bring everyone home. It was a promise they made before every mission, and sometimes Marcus wondered if saying it out loud was tempting fate. But Torres believed in the power of intention, of speaking things into existence. Marcus believed in training, planning, and overwhelming firepower, but he kept his mouth shut and nodded. The team gathered at 0200 hours in the equipment bay. Everyone was running through final checks in silence. This was the ritual, the meditation before violence. Marcus watched his people work with the familiarity of long practice. Park was checking his communication equipment, ensuring every connection was solid. Johnson was zeroing his rifle one final time, his movements precise and methodical. Martinez was organizing his medical supplies, counting packages of gauze and tourniquets. Chen was inspecting her explosive charges, her face serene and focused. Torres was studying maps, committing the terrain to memory. Comms check, Marcus said, activating his throat mic. One by one, everyone responded, their voices clear in his earpiece. Park gave a thumbs up from across the room. All systems were green. The helicopter was waiting on the tarmac, a modified Black Hawk painted flat black for night operations. The pilot was a warrant officer named Henderson who'd been flying special ops missions for 15 years. He had the kind of face that looked permanently bored, but Marcus had seen him thread a helicopter through mountains in zero visibility without breaking a sweat. If Henderson was flying, they'd get where they needed to go. They loaded up in silence. The interior of the helicopter was cramped with 6 bodies and all their equipment. Marcus did a final head count. 6 people. Everyone accounted for. He gave Henderson the signal, and the helicopter lifted off into the darkness. The flight took 90 minutes, following a route that skirted radar installations and kept them over water for as long as possible. Marcus watched the coastline of San Cristobal appear in the distance, a dark line against a slightly less dark ocean. No lights visible. This was one of the most remote parts of the country, where civilization was measured in small villages separated by miles of impassable jungle. Henderson's voice came through the headset. 5 minutes to drop zone. Weather's good. No radar contacts. Looks like you've got a clear shot. Marcus gave another head count. Still 6. Everyone was checking their gear one last time. Tightening straps, testing clips. This was it. The point of no return. In 5 minutes, they'd be on the ground in hostile territory, and everything that happened after that would be a test of skill, training, and luck. 2 minutes, Henderson said. The helicopter was barely 50 feet off the ground now, traveling fast and low. Marcus could see the jungle canopy rushing past in the darkness. Then Henderson pulled up, and the helicopter hovered. You're clear. Good luck. They fast roped out one at a time. Marcus went last, sliding down the thick rope and dropping the final 10 feet to the forest floor. The helicopter was gone before he hit the ground, disappearing into the night sky. And then there was silence. Deep, profound jungle silence that wasn't silent at all but filled with the sounds of insects and animals and the constant drip of moisture. Torres appeared beside him, barely visible in the darkness. Everyone's down. Gear check. They took 5 minutes to verify that nothing had been damaged in the insertion and that everyone was ready to move. Park established a satellite link and sent a quick burst transmission. Back to base, insertion successful. Then they were moving, Torres on point, navigating through terrain that seemed designed to slow them down. The jungle at night was a different world. With night vision goggles, everything was rendered in shades of green and gray. Depth perception became unreliable. The temperature was in the 90s even though it was the middle of the night, and humidity was close to 100%. Within 15 minutes, everyone was soaked with sweat. But they moved in silence, communicating only through hand signals, covering ground as quickly as the terrain allowed. Marcus had done this enough times that his body operated on autopilot. 1 foot in front of the other. Watch where Torres stepped. Avoid making noise. Scan for threats. Check behind. Periodically to make sure everyone was keeping up. The mission rhythm took over, and his mind entered that state of hyper-awareness where everything slowed down just slightly, where he could process multiple inputs simultaneously. They'd been moving for about 2 hours when Marcus first noticed something was off. It was subtle, just a feeling of being watched that prickled at the back of his neck. He'd learned long ago not to ignore those feelings. He signaled for everyone to stop and take a knee. They formed a defensive circle, weapons pointing outward, and waited. Nothing. No movement. No sounds except the normal jungle cacophony. After 2 minutes, Torres looked back at him with a question in his eyes. Marcus shrugged and signaled to continue. Probably just paranoia. Probably. But the feeling didn't go away. As they continued moving through the jungle, Marcus kept getting the sense that there was someone else out there. Someone or something pacing them, staying just out of sight. He didn't mention it to the team, no point in making everyone paranoid, but he kept his weapon ready and his eyes scanning. Dawn came suddenly, the way it does in the tropics. One moment it was full darkness, and the next, gray light was filtering through the canopy. They'd covered about 8 kilometers, which Was good progress through this terrain. Torres found a defensible position on a small rise, and they settled in for a few hours of rest. They couldn't risk moving during full daylight, too easy to be spotted. Martinez passed around water and energy bars. Everyone ate in silence, too tired to talk. Marcus checked the map against his GPS. They were right on course. At this pace, they'd reach Santa Elena by nightfall, make contact with Dr. Salazar, and be ready for extraction by tomorrow night. Everything was going according to plan. Which, of course, was when things started going wrong. Park was monitoring his equipment when he suddenly stiffened. "Captain, I'm picking up radio traffic. Military frequencies. Sounds like a patrol sweep, and they're close. Maybe 2 kilometers east of our position." Everyone froze. 2 kilometers was nothing in open terrain, but in jungle this dense, it might as well be miles. Still, they couldn't afford to be careless. "How many?" Marcus asked. Park listened for a moment. "At least a squad. Maybe more. They're doing a standard grid search. No indication they know we're here." "Do they pass near our route to Santa Elena?" "Hard to say. If they maintain their current heading, we should be clear. But if they expand their search pattern, we might run right into them." Marcus thought quickly. "We stay here until they move on. Everyone get some rest. Torres, you and I will take first watch. 2-hour rotations." The day passed with agonizing slowness. The heat was oppressive, and the humidity made it hard to breathe. Every sound in the jungle seemed magnified, the call of birds, the rustle of wind through leaves, the occasional crack of a branch. Marcus tried to rest but couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Not the patrol, Park was monitoring them, and they'd moved on, heading north away from the team's position. Something else. He found himself counting the team members repeatedly. Torres and Park were on watch. Johnson was cleaning his rifle. Martinez was sleeping. Chen was reviewing her demolition plans. That was 5 plus himself. 6 total. Exactly as it should be. So why did he keep feeling like there was someone else there? "You okay, Captain?" Chen asked quietly. She'd noticed him staring into the jungle. "Fine. Just watching for movement." "You've been watching the same spot for 10 minutes. There's nothing there." Marcus blinked. She was right. He'd been staring at a particular patch of shadow between 2 trees, and for just a moment, he could have sworn he'd seen someone standing there. But when he focused on it directly, there was nothing. Just his mind playing tricks. By 1800 hours, the sun was beginning its rapid descent, and they prepared to move again. This was the critical phase. They needed to cover the remaining 12 kilometers to Santa Elena, make contact with Dr. Salazar, and be in position for extraction. The window for error was getting smaller. Torres took point again, and they moved out. The jungle seemed different in the twilight. Shadows deepening, colors fading to gray. Marcus found himself checking behind more frequently than usual. That feeling of being followed had intensified. At one point, he stopped and looked back at the line of soldiers behind him. 5 people. That was right. Torres was ahead. On point. Then Park, Johnson, Martinez, Chen. 5 people following him. 6 total. Except he kept counting 7. He'd count, get 7, then count again and get 6. His mind was playing tricks, probably a combination of stress and exhaustion. He'd been in the field for too long. This mission would be his last for a while. He'd take some leave, decompress, maybe see a doctor about these hallucinations. They reached the outskirts of Santa Elena at 2100 hours. The village was small. Maybe 40 structures, most of them simple wooden buildings with tin roofs. Dim light showed through a few windows, but for the most part, the village was dark. Intelligence said Dr. Salazar was hiding in a safe house on the eastern edge, away from the main cluster of buildings. Marcus signaled for everyone to take positions around the village perimeter. They'd observe for 30 minutes, make sure there were no obvious signs of military presence, then move in for contact. Johnson set up in a position with good sightlines, his rifle ready. Park deployed a small drone to give them overhead surveillance. Chen and Martinez covered the southern approach. Torres stayed with Marcus. "Something's off," Torres whispered. "What are you seeing?" "That's just it. I'm not seeing anything. Village this size, this time of night, there should be people moving around. Dogs barking. Something. But it's too quiet." Marcus studied the village through his night vision. Torres was right. The place felt abandoned. Or like everyone was hiding. Could be they know Rivera's people are in the area and they're being cautious. Could be. Or could be they're expecting us. It was a paranoid thought, but paranoia kept you alive in this line of work. "Park, anything on the drone?" "Negative. No heat signatures except what you'd expect from people inside buildings. No vehicles. No obvious military presence. If it's a trap, it's a well-hidden one." Marcus made the decision. "We go in. Slow and careful. Torres and I will make contact with Salazar. Everyone else maintains perimeter. If this goes bad, you know the extraction points. Don't wait for us." "Sir," Martinez started to protest. "That's an order. If we're compromised, the mission becomes getting yourselves out." "Clear." Reluctant acknowledgements came back over the calm. Marcus and Torres moved into the village, keeping to the shadows, weapons ready. The safe house was a small wooden structure that looked like every other building, weathered, simple, unremarkable. Perfect for hiding in plain sight. Marcus approached the door and knocked twice, paused, knocked 3 times, the recognition signal they'd been given. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a voice from inside, heavily accented, "Who is there?" "Friends from the north. We're here to help you travel." The door opened a crack, and a face appeared, middle-aged, Hispanic, with glasses and thinning hair. "Dr. Salazar looked terrified. "You are American military? We're here to get you out. Are you ready to leave?" "Yes, yes. I have everything. My research, the samples, all of it." Salazar opened the door wider, clutching a small backpack to his chest like it contained the secrets of the universe. Which, Marcus supposed, it did. "Is anyone else here?" "No, I am alone. The family who was hiding me left yesterday. They said it was too dangerous." That confirmed Torres's instincts. The village knew something was coming. "We need to move. Now. Stay close to us, do exactly what we say, and stay quiet. Understand?" Salazar nodded frantically. They left the safe house and began moving back toward the perimeter. Marcus was halfway to the tree line when everything went to hell. Gunfire erupted from the south side of the village. Automatic weapons, at least 2 of them. Chen's voice came over the comm, urgent but controlled, "Contact south. Multiple hostiles, at least a squad, maybe more. We're falling back to. An explosion cut her off. Then Martinez, Chen's down. I've got her, but we need to move now. Marcus made a split-second decision. Everyone converge on extraction point Bravo. Go, go, go. They ran. Torres was ahead, navigating through the jungle at a dead sprint, somehow avoiding trees and roots in the darkness. Marcus had Salazar by the arm, half dragging the scientist. Behind them, the sound of gunfire intensified. Johnson's rifle barked out, methodical and deadly. Covering fire. Park was breathing hard over the comm, probably running with 100 pounds of equipment. They'd covered maybe a quarter mile when Chen's voice came back, weak and pained. Martinez. I can't, my leg. I've got you, Martinez said. Just hold on. Stay with me. Marcus risked a glance back and saw muzzle flashes in the darkness. The pursuit was close, too. Close. They needed time, needed distance. He pulled out a smoke grenade, armed it, and tossed it behind them. Red smoke billowed up, obscuring their trail, but it would only buy them seconds. They were maybe a mile from the extraction point when Marcus realized they had a problem. He could hear Chen over the comm, her breathing rapid and shallow, signs of shock. Whatever injury she'd sustained in the explosion was serious. Martinez was doing his best, but they were slowing down. At this rate, the pursuit would catch them before they reached extraction. Johnson, Marcus said. I need you to slow them down. Roger that. Johnson's voice was calm, almost serene. The voice of a man doing what he was born to do. I've got a good position. I can give you 5 minutes. Make it count. Johnson's rifle began firing in controlled bursts. Marcus heard shouting in Spanish from behind them, the pursuit suddenly pinned down by accurate sniper fire. 5 minutes. They had 5 minutes to get Chen to extraction. They burst into the clearing that marked extraction point Bravo. Park was already on the radio, calling in the helicopter. Dust off, dust off. We need immediate extraction. We have 1 casualty. Multiple hostiles in pursuit. Over. The response was crackling and broken, but the message was clear. The helicopter was inbound. ETA 10 minutes. They had to hold for 10 minutes. Marcus set up a defensive position, everyone except Martinez focusing outward while the medic worked on Chen. She'd taken shrapnel from the explosion, her left leg torn up badly. Martinez was packing the wound, applying a tourniquet, pumping her full of morphine. She's stable for now, but she's lost a lot of blood. We need to get her to a hospital soon. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. Johnson caught up with them, moving fast, his rifle hot from continuous firing. They're right behind me. At least 24 hostiles, probably more. They're pissed. Everyone spread out. Don't give them a concentrated target. Conserve your ammo. We just need to hold until. The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the night. Henderson's voice came over the radio, I've got visual on your position. Coming in hot. Be ready to load fast. The helicopter descended into the clearing, and all hell broke loose. The pursuing soldiers broke out of the tree line, weapons firing. Bullets pinged off the helicopter's armored hull. Marcus and his team returned fire, covering each other as they ran for the bird. Martinez literally threw Chen into the helicopter, then rolled in after her. Park was next, then Torres. Johnson was still firing, covering their retreat. Doctor Salazar stood frozen in terror until Marcus grabbed him and shoved him toward the helicopter. That's when Marcus counted again. Everyone was on the helicopter. Torres, Park, Johnson, Martinez, Chen, Salazar. 6 team members plus 1 asset. That was everyone. So who was the person still standing in the clearing with him? Marcus turned and saw him clearly for the first time. Young, maybe mid-20s. Dark eyes. A scar through his left eyebrow. Wearing the same combat fatigues as the rest of the team, the same tactical vest, the same helmet. The man was firing at the pursuing soldiers, his movements professional and efficient. He looked at Marcus, and for just a moment, their eyes met. The young man nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, then turned back to the fight. "Captain, we need to go now," Henderson screamed over the radio. Marcus ran for the helicopter. He was 10 feet away when an RPG streaked out of the jungle. Time seemed to slow down. Marcus could see the rocket-propelled grenade arcing through the air, heading straight for the helicopter. There was no way to stop it, no way to. Someone slammed into him from behind, tackling him to the ground. The RPG passed overhead, missing the helicopter by inches, and exploded in the trees beyond. Marcus looked up and saw the young soldier rolling away, already back on his feet, still firing. Then Marcus was being dragged into the helicopter by Torres, and they were lifting off, bullets still pinging off the hull. And the clearing was falling away below them. Marcus scrambled to the open door and looked down. The young soldier was still there, still standing in the clearing, still firing at the enemy soldiers. Then the jungle swallowed the clearing. And he was gone. Who was that? Marcus shouted over the rotor noise. Torres looked at him strangely. Who was who? The soldier who was covering us. The one who knocked me out of the way of that RPG. Torres exchanged glances with Park and Johnson. "Captain, I don't know what you saw, but it was just us down there. You dove out of the way of that RPG on your own. Nobody pushed you." Marcus stared at him. That couldn't be right. He'd seen the man clearly. Had felt him tackle him to the ground. But looking around the helicopter, everyone was accounted for. 6 team members. 1 asset. Nobody missing. Nobody extra. He counted again to be sure. Torres sitting across from him. Park next to Torres, already working on his equipment. Johnson beside the door, his rifle across his lap. Martinez working on Chen, who was pale but conscious. And Dr. Salazar in the center, still clutching his backpack, looking like he might throw up from fear or relief or both. 6 team members. All present. All accounted for. So who the hell had been in the clearing with him? The flight back to FOB Artemis took 90 minutes. Chen remained stable, though she was drifting in and out of consciousness from the morphine. Martinez stayed with her the entire flight, monitoring her vitals, adjusting the tourniquet. By the time they landed, a medical team was waiting. They rushed Chen away on a stretcher, Martinez running alongside, rattling off her condition and treatment. Colonel Hendricks was also waiting. She took one look at the team, exhausted, filthy, covered in mud and blood, and nodded. Debris in 4 hours. Get cleaned up, get some food, get some rest. Good work out there. Marcus went through the motions of post-mission routine. Weapons cleaned and secured. Gear inventoried. Quick shower that did nothing to wash away the accumulated tension. He should have been exhausted, but his mind wouldn't stop racing. He kept seeing that soldier in the clearing. Young face. Dark eyes. Scar through the left eyebrow. Firing at the enemy. Saving Marcus's life. Who was he? Marcus pulled up the mission footage from everyone's helmet cams. He started with his own footage, watching the mission unfold in grainy night vision green. The approach to Santa Elena. Making contact with Salazar. The ambush. The retreat to the extraction point. He watched himself counting his team members, and on the footage, he could clearly see 7 people. 7. But when he tried to focus on the 7th person, the same thing happened that had occurred in real time. His attention would slide away, unable to quite focus. He pulled Torres's footage. Same thing. 7 people visible, but the 7th somehow always in a blind spot, always obscured. Park's footage showed the same phenomenon. It was like looking at an optical illusion, something your eyes could see but your brain couldn't quite process. Then he got to the extraction sequence. His own helmet cam had been knocked askew during the dive away from the RPG, so the footage was jumbled. But when he stabilized it frame by frame, he could see it. A figure in combat fatigues, standing behind him in the clearing. The figure's arm extended, pushing Marcus out of the RPG's path. Then the figure turned toward the enemy, weapon raised. Marcus froze the frame and enhanced it as much as the low resolution would allow. The face was partially obscured by shadow, but the features were visible. Young. Early 20s. Dark eyes. A scar through the left eyebrow. Marcus felt his heart hammering. He knew this face. He'd seen it before. But where? He started going through personnel databases. Every operator who'd ever served in Black Ops in San Cristobal. It took him an hour, and then he found it. A file marked inactive. The photograph matched the face from his helmet cam almost perfectly. Private First Class Daniel Cooper. Age 23 at time of death. Killed in action 18 months ago. In San Cristobal. On a mission that officially never happened. Marcus opened the file with hands that had started to shake. He remembered now. He remembered all of it. The mission had been a reconnaissance operation, similar to the one they'd just completed. Marcus had been team leader. Cooper had been the newest member, eager and talented and desperately wanting to prove himself. They'd inserted deep into the jungle, gathered intelligence on Rivera's military installations, and were preparing to extract when they were ambushed. The firefight had been brutal. Marcus's team had been outnumbered 3-1. In the chaos, Cooper had been separated from the main group, pinned down by heavy fire. Marcus had to make a choice, risk the entire team trying to fight their way to Cooper's position, or complete the extraction and hope Cooper could evade until a rescue team arrived. Marcus had made the call. They'd extracted without Cooper. By the time a rescue team could be organized and inserted, 2 days had passed. They'd searched for a week and found nothing. He's been dead for 18 months. Kia on a mission I led. His body was never recovered. Silence fell over the room like a shroud. Johnson was the first to speak, his voice quiet and measured. I saw him during the firefight at Santa Elena. I was in an overwatch position, and I remember counting 7 heat signatures through my scope. When I tried to focus on the 7th, the image would blur, like something was interfering with my optics. But he was there. He moved with us, covered our flanks. At one point, I swear I saw him take down 2 hostiles who were about to flank Martinez. Martinez nodded slowly. I remember that. I remember thinking someone had my back, but when I looked, there was no one there. Just the bodies of 2 enemy soldiers who'd been taken out at close range. He looked at Marcus. This man, Cooper, he saved my life. Apparently, he's been saving all of us. Park had pulled out his tablet and was going through his own mission logs. I've been analyzing the communication data from the mission. There are gaps in the recording, moments where it sounds like someone else was on our frequency, but the voice is distorted. I thought it was equipment malfunction, but now, he looked up. Now I'm thinking it was him. He was trying to communicate with us. Marcus felt the weight of what they were discussing settle over the room. This wasn't mass hallucination or equipment failure or stress-induced delusions. This was real. Somehow, impossibly, Daniel Cooper had been with them on that mission. A dead soldier had joined their team, had fought alongside them, had saved their lives. What do we tell Colonel Hendricks? Torres asked. The truth, Marcus said. All of it. She needs to know what happened out there. But when they met with Hendricks 2 hours later for the formal debrief, Marcus discovered that she already knew. The colonel sat at the head of the conference table, her expression unreadable, and listened as Marcus and his team recounted everything, the feeling of being watched, the recurring head counts that came up with 7 people, the 7th soldier in the clearing who'd saved Marcus from the RPG. When they finished, Hendricks was silent for a long moment. Then she opened a file folder and spread a series of documents across the table. Captain Reed. You're not the first team to encounter this phenomenon. In the past 18 months, there have been 4 other confirmed sightings of a 7th soldier matching Daniel Cooper's description. Each time, it's been during a mission in San Cristobal. Each time, the teams have reported the same thing, an extra soldier who appears during moments of extreme danger, helps them complete their objective, then disappears. Marcus stared at the documents. Mission reports from teams he didn't know, all describing the same experience. The same face. The same scar through the left eyebrow. The same inexplicable presence. Why didn't you tell me about this before the mission? Marcus asked, and he couldn't keep the anger out of his voice. Because I needed unbiased observation. If I'd told you about the previous sightings, you would have been looking for them. Your team would have been influenced by suggestion. I needed to know if this was a real phenomenon or just a case of one team's story influencing others. Hendricks leaned back in her chair. Now I know it's real. 5 separate teams, different members. Different missions, all reporting the same entity. That's beyond coincidence. Entity? Park said. You mean ghost? I mean, I don't know what to call it. We've had scientists study the phenomenon. We've had psychologists interview the teams. We've had priests and shamans and every kind of expert you can imagine look at this, and no one has an explanation that makes sense. Hendricks pulled out another document, this one with a red classified stamp across the top. 6 months ago, we found Cooper's dog tags in a village about 15 kilometers from where you lost him. The locals told us about a wounded American soldier they tried to help. He died despite their efforts, and they buried him according to their customs. You found his body? Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. We found a body in the location they described. DNA confirmed it was Cooper. He'd been dead for at least a year, probably longer. We brought him home, buried him at Arlington with full honors. His family has closure. Hendricks paused. But the sightings didn't stop. If anything, They've increased. It's like finding his body and bringing him home made him more active, not less. Torres spoke up. What if that's what he needed? To know that he wouldn't be forgotten, that his family knew what happened to him. That's one theory. Another theory is that Cooper's death was so traumatic, occurred in such extreme circumstances, that some part of him remained behind. Quantum physics talks about consciousness as energy, and energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. Maybe what we're seeing is Cooper's consciousness, still active, still trying to complete his mission. Johnson, who'd been silent throughout the debriefing, finally spoke. Does it matter what we call it? The man, or whatever he is, has saved American lives. He's helped 5 different teams complete their missions and come home safe. That's more than most soldiers do in an entire career. Agreed, Hendricks said. Which is why I'm making a decision that's going to sound insane. I'm officially designating Daniel Cooper as an asset. He's not a threat. He's not a target. If teams operating in San Cristobal encounter him, they are not to engage, not to investigate, not to interfere. They are to accept his help and complete their missions. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're militarizing a ghost. I'm acknowledging a reality that we don't fully understand but that has proven beneficial to our operations. Cooper has a perfect record, 5 missions, 5 successful completions, 0 friendly casualties when he's present. Those are better odds than any operator I know. Hendricks looked at each of them in turn. This information is classified at the highest level. You don't talk about it outside this room. You don't include it in your official reports. As far as the world is concerned, your mission had 6 operators, and it was completed successfully. Understood? They all nodded, but Marcus felt uneasy. This wasn't right. Cooper deserved better than to be turned into a classified asset, a ghost story that was officially denied but unofficially exploited. After the debrief, Marcus returned to his quarters and pulled up Cooper's personnel file again. He read through the young man's history: enlisted at 19, served with distinction, received commendations for bravery. Cooper had been engaged to a girl back home, had planned to propose when he returned from deployment. He'd had a younger sister who looked up to him. Parents who were proud of him. He'd been a real person with a real life, and Marcus had made the decision that ended it. There was a knock on his door. When Marcus opened it, he found Chen standing there on crutches, her leg heavily bandaged. Specialist, you should be resting. I needed to see you, sir. To tell you something. She hobbled into the room and sat down. Carefully. When that grenade landed near me in Santa Elena, I saw him. Cooper. He was right there, and he grabbed me and threw me behind cover. I felt his hands on my vest. I felt the strength of someone who was real and solid. And just before the grenade went off, he looked at me and smiled. Like he was happy to help. Like this was what he was meant to do. Chen. Let me finish, sir. After the grenade, when Martinez was working on me, I was drifting in and out of consciousness. And I saw Cooper again. He was standing at the edge of the jungle, watching us. Making sure we got out okay. And I understood something in that moment. He's not haunting that jungle. He's not trapped there. He's choosing to stay. He's choosing to protect us. Marcus sat down heavily. Why would he do that? I'm the one who left him behind. I'm the one who made the call that got him killed. He should hate me. Maybe he understands that you made an impossible choice. Maybe he knows that you saved 5 lives that day, even though it cost his. Maybe he's telling you that he forgives you. Chen struggled to her feet, balancing on her crutches. Or maybe he's just a soldier doing his duty. Even in death. Especially in death. After she left, Marcus sat in the darkness of his quarters for a long time, thinking about duty and sacrifice and the bonds that connected soldiers across the boundary between life and death. He thought about the choices he'd made, the people he'd lost, the weight of command that never got lighter, only more familiar. Finally, he pulled out a piece of paper and began to write. It wasn't an official report, those had already been filed, sanitized of any mention of the 7th soldier. This was a letter, addressed to no one and everyone, a testament to what had really happened in the jungles of San Cristobal. He wrote about Daniel Cooper, who'd enlisted to serve his country and had never stopped serving. Even after death. He wrote about the impossible thing they'd all witnessed, the ghost who fought alongside them. He wrote about redemption and forgiveness and the idea that some bonds were stronger than death itself. When he finished, Marcus sealed the letter in an envelope and locked it in his personal safe. Maybe someday, when all of this was declassified, when the truth could be told, someone would read it and understand. Until then, it would remain a secret, known only to the few who'd been there. 3 days later, Marcus visited Chen in the hospital. She was recovering well, already working on physical therapy, determined to get back to active duty as soon as possible. They talked about the mission, about the team, about plans for the future. As Marcus was leaving, Chen called out to him. "Captain. There's something else. When I was under anesthesia during surgery, I had this dream. Cooper was there, and he was talking to another soldier. Someone I didn't recognize. They were laughing about something, and Cooper looked happy. Really happy. And the other soldier said, 'You coming?' And Cooper said, 'Not yet. I still have work to do.' Then they both faded away." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What did the other soldier look like? Older than Cooper. Maybe late 20s. Hispanic. He had a tattoo on his forearm, an eagle and a snake. Marcus knew that tattoo. It was the symbol of Mexico's special forces, the Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales. And he knew exactly one soldier who'd worn that tattoo, Sergeant Miguel Ramos, who'd been on Marcus's team 4 years ago when they'd run operations along the Mexican border. Ramos had been killed during an ambush, died saving the rest of the team. "Chen, are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe Cooper isn't alone out there. Maybe there are others. Maybe everyone we've lost is still watching over us, still fighting alongside us, still making sure we come home." She smiled, though her eyes were wet. "It's a nice thought, isn't it?" Marcus left the hospital with his mind reeling. If Chen was right, if there were other soldiers out there, still protecting their brothers and sisters in arms even after death, then the implications were staggering. How many ghosts walked the battlefields of the world? How many fallen soldiers still stood guard over the living? He pulled out his phone and called Torres. "I need you to do something for me. Pull the records of every operator we've lost in the past 5 years. Every Kia, every missing in action. I want to know where they died, when they died, and if there have been any unexplained incidents in those areas since." "Sir, that's going to take days. Maybe weeks. I know. But I need to know if this is bigger than Cooper. I need to know if we've been fighting beside ghosts all along and just didn't realize it." Torres was quiet for a moment. "You think it's possible?" That everyone we've lost is still out there. I think soldiers take care of their own. In life and in death. And I think maybe death isn't as final as we thought. Marcus looked out at the base, at the soldiers going about their duties, living and breathing and preparing for the next mission. Just get me those records, Torres. Let's see what we find. Over the next 2 weeks, Torres saved 5 lives. You completed the mission. You did what a good commander does, you made the hard choice. I understood that then, and I understand it now. I left you behind, Cooper. I abandoned you. You trusted me to do my job, which was to buy time for the team to escape. I did my job. And now I'm still doing my job, just in a different way. Cooper smiled, and it was the same smile Chen had described, peaceful, content, purposeful. This is where I'm supposed to be, Captain. Watching over my brothers and sisters. Making sure they come home. This is my mission now. But you should be at peace. You should be, I don't know, wherever soldiers go when they die. Maybe this is where soldiers go. Maybe we don't leave until the mission is complete. And the mission is never really complete, is it? There's always another team that needs backup, always. Another operation where someone needs a guardian angel. Cooper looked up at the canopy, at the light filtering through the leaves. I'm not in pain, sir. I'm not suffering. I'm doing what I was meant to do. Same as you. How many of you are there? How many others? Enough. The fallen watch over the living. It's always been that way, even if people don't see it. Even if they don't believe it. Cooper looked back at Marcus. You'll see us again, sir. When you need us most. We're always there. We never leave our brothers behind. Marcus woke up with tears on his face, the dream so vivid it felt like a memory. He checked his watch. 400 hours. The darkest part of the night, the time when ghosts walked and the boundary between worlds was thinnest. He got up and went to his desk, pulling out the letter he'd written days ago. He read it again, every word a testament to what he'd witnessed, what he'd experienced. Then he added a new paragraph, describing the dream, Cooper's words, the message of peace and purpose. When he finished, he sealed the letter again and made a decision. This wouldn't stay locked in his safe. This needed to be shared, needed to be passed down, needed to become part of the oral tradition of soldiers everywhere. The story of the 7th soldier, the ghost who protected his team, the fallen who never truly fell. Marcus spent the next month preparing for his next deployment. A new mission, a different country, but the same core objective: protect American interests, gather intelligence, complete the mission, bring everyone home. His team was different this time. Torres was there, and Park. And Johnson. Martinez had been reassigned to a training position, working with new medics. Chen was still recovering, pushing herself through physical therapy with the same determination she brought to everything else. 2 new operators joined the team: Sergeant Lisa Washington, a intelligence specialist with a background in cryptography, and Corporal James Burke, a combat engineer who could build or destroy anything. The briefing was familiar: hostile territory, high-value target, extreme risk, complete deniability. They'd be operating in the mountains of Afghanistan, tracking a warlord who'd been coordinating attacks on coalition forces. 6 operators. 72 hours. Get in, gather intelligence, get out. Marcus looked at his team as they prepared for insertion. 6 people. 6 names on the roster. 6 sets of gear. He wondered if they'd come back as 6 or 7. The insertion went smoothly. They fast roped into a valley at night, moved through terrain that was all rock and ice and thin air. Afghanistan was different from the jungle, no concealing vegetation, no canopy overhead. Just naked stone and endless sky. But the principle was the same. Stay quiet. Stay alert. Complete the mission. They were 3 days into the operation, set up in an observation post overlooking the warlords' compound, when Washington suddenly stiffened. "Captain, I'm seeing movement on the ridge above us. Single person, moving carefully. Could be a scout." Marcus studied the ridge through his binoculars. There was someone up there, barely visible. Against the gray stone. Moving with purpose. Coming toward their position. "Everyone take cover. Burke, get ready with the..." "Wait," Torres said quietly. "Sir, look at how he's moving. Look at his gear." Marcus looked again, and felt his heart skip a beat. The figure on the ridge was wearing American combat fatigues. The same style they wore. The same equipment layout. And as the figure got closer, Marcus could make out more details. Young. Hispanic. A tattoo visible on his forearm, an eagle and a snake. "Ramos," Marcus breathed. Sergeant Miguel Ramos had been dead for 4 years, killed in an ambush along the Mexican border. But here he was, moving down the ridge toward them, his face calm and focused. He reached their position and took a knee, as naturally as if he'd been part of the team all along. "Hostiles approaching from the east," Ramos said, his voice exactly as Marcus remembered it. "At least 24 fighters, heavily armed. They know you're here. You have maybe 10 minutes. Before they reach this position." Washington was staring, her mouth open. "Who the hell?" "Later," Marcus said. "Right now, we need to move. Everyone pack up, we're extracting to fallback. Position Delta. Move." The team scrambled, breaking down their equipment with practiced efficiency. Ramos was already moving, scouting their exit route, just like he used to do when he was alive. Marcus watched him work, watched him move through terrain with the same easy competence, and felt a strange mixture of grief and gratitude. They made it to the fallback position with minutes to spare. Behind them, the sound of gunfire erupted as enemy fighters swarmed their previous location. If they'd stayed, they would have been overrun. "How did you know they were coming?" Marcus asked Ramos. Ramos smiled. "Same way I always know, Captain. I'm watching out for you. All of you. You're dead, Miguel. You've been dead for 4 years. I know. But that doesn't mean I stopped being a soldier. It doesn't mean I stopped protecting my team." Ramos looked at each of them. "You're going to complete this mission. You're going to get the intelligence you need. And you're all going to go home. That's what I'm here to make sure happens." Over the next 48 hours, Ramos stayed with them. He scouted routes, warned them of patrols, helped them avoid detection. The new team members, Washington and Burke, stopped questioning it after the first day. They simply accepted that they were being helped by a ghost. And focused on staying alive and completing the mission. They got the intelligence they needed, photographs of the warlord's operation, intercepted communications, locations of weapon caches. Everything headquarters wanted. And when they reached the extraction point, Ramos was still with them. The helicopter came in at dawn, rotors beating against thin mountain air. Marcus was the last one to board, and before he climbed in, he turned to Ramos. Thank you, Sergeant. For everything. Ramos nodded. Just doing my job, sir. Same as always. Are there others? Cooper said there were others. There are. We're everywhere soldiers fight and die. Watching. Protecting. Making sure our brothers and sisters come home. Ramos looked up at the sky, at the first rays of sunlight breaking over the mountains. It's not a bad way to spend eternity, sir. Knowing that we still matter. That we still serve. You'll always matter, Miguel. You and Cooper and everyone we've lost. You'll always be remembered. I know, sir. That's why we can let go when it's time. Because we know we won't be forgotten. Ramos stepped back as the helicopter's engines increased pitch. Safe flight, Captain. Until we meet again. Marcus climbed into the helicopter, and as they lifted off, he looked down at the landing zone. Ramos was still there, standing at attention, one hand raised in a final salute. Then the helicopter banked, and the landing zone disappeared behind a ridge, and Ramos was gone. The debriefing back at base was thorough. Marcus filed his official report, 6 operators. Successful mission, intelligence gathered, 0 casualties. But he also filed a classified supplement, describing Ramos's appearance, his help, his words. He included testimony from every team member, all of them swearing that they'd seen the same thing. Colonel Hendricks added it to the growing file of similar incidents. 23 confirmed. Sightings now. 23 times fallen. Soldiers had appeared to help active teams. The pattern was undeniable. We're going to have to address this eventually, Hendricks said. We can't keep classifying it forever. Maybe we don't need to, Marcus said. Maybe this is something that should stay between soldiers. A secret we keep, a truth we protect. The world doesn't need to know that we're being watched over by ghosts. But we need to know. We need to honor it. And how do we honor it? Marcus thought about that for a moment. We remember them. We tell their stories. We make sure that every fallen soldier's name is spoken, their sacrifice acknowledged. We create a legacy that transcends death. And when new soldiers ask us if the stories are true, if the 7th soldier is real, we tell them yes. We tell them that the fallen never truly leave us. That we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, something that death can't break. Hendricks nodded slowly. I can work with that. Over the next year, Marcus ran 7 more missions. On 3 of them, fallen soldiers appeared. Cooper came back twice, once in the jungles of Colombia and once on a mission back in San Cristobal. Each time, he helped the team, saved lives, ensured the mission succeeded. Each time, he had that same expression of peace and purpose, like a man who'd found his calling. But it wasn't just Cooper and Ramos. Other ghosts appeared too. A Marine who died in Fallujah. A ranger who'd fallen in Somalia. A pilot who'd been shot down over Bosnia. Each one helping. Protecting, serving even in death. Marcus documented all of it. He kept detailed records, gathered testimony, built a database of the fallen who still fought. And slowly, quietly, word spread through the special operations community. Soldiers started sharing their own stories, times when they'd felt protected by an unseen presence, moments when they'd survived impossible situations, instances where they could have sworn they saw a fallen comrade standing guard. The 7th soldier became a legend, but a legend that soldiers knew was true. It became part of their culture, their tradition. Before missions, teams would quietly acknowledge the fallen, asking them to watch over the living. After missions, they'd give thanks, knowing that they'd been protected by more than just their training and equipment. Marcus retired from active duty 2 years after the San Cristobal mission. He'd served 25 years, run more missions than he could count, lost more people than he wanted to remember. But he left knowing that those he'd lost weren't truly gone. They were still there, still fighting, still protecting their brothers and sisters. On his last day in uniform, Marcus visited Arlington National Cemetery. He walked through the endless rows of white headstones, each one marking a soldier who'd given everything. He stopped at Daniel Cooper's grave, which had been placed near other fallen special operations soldiers. "Hey, Cooper," Marcus said quietly, kneeling beside the headstone. "I'm retiring today. Hanging up the uniform. Thought you should know." The cemetery was quiet, just the sound of wind through trees and the distant call of birds. But Marcus felt a presence, warm and familiar. He looked up and saw Cooper standing a few feet away, as real as he'd ever been. The young private smiled. "You earned it, sir. You served with honor. Now it's time for you to rest." "What about you? When do you get to rest?" "Maybe I am resting. Maybe this is my heaven, watching over soldiers, making sure they come home, knowing that I'm still making a difference." Cooper looked around at the thousands of graves. "All of us here, we chose this life. We knew the risks. And now we choose to keep serving. In whatever way we can. It's not a burden. It's a privilege." Marcus felt tears on his face. "I'm sorry I left you behind, Cooper. I'm sorry I couldn't save you." "You did save me, sir. You saved my brothers that day. You made the hard choice, the right choice. And because of that, 5 men went home to their families. That's not something to apologize for. That's something to be proud of." Cooper stepped closer. "You were a good commander, Captain Reed. You brought people home. You completed missions. You did your duty. And now you get to live the life we fought to protect. Don't waste it carrying guilt. Live well. Be happy. Honor us by being alive." Marcus stood up, wiping his eyes. "Will I see you again?" "Maybe. When it's my turn to welcome you home. But not for a long time, I hope." Cooper smiled. "One last time. Goodbye, sir. And thank you for everything." Then he was gone, fading like morning mist, leaving Marcus alone among the graves of the fallen. But Marcus didn't feel alone. He felt surrounded by the presence of thousands of soldiers. All of them still watching, still protecting, still serving. He walked back to his car, feeling lighter than he had in years. The guilt he'd been carrying was finally gone, replaced by understanding. By acceptance. By the knowledge that sometimes death wasn't an ending but a transformation. That the bonds between soldiers transcended mortal limitations. That service was eternal. Marcus went on to live a full life. He got married, had children, taught military history at a university. But he never forgot what he'd learned in the jungles of San Cristobal, in the mountains of Afghanistan, in the quiet moments when the impossible became real. He told the story of the 7th soldier to anyone who would listen, not as fiction, not as metaphor, but as truth. Some people believed him. Others thought he was crazy. But among soldiers, among those who'd served and sacrificed, the story resonated. They knew. They'd all felt it at one time or another, that sense of being watched over, protected by something beyond themselves. Years later, when Marcus was an old man, he received a letter from a young soldier about to deploy to combat for the first time. The soldier had heard the story of the seventh soldier and wanted to know if it was true. If the fallen really did watch over the living. Marcus wrote back immediately. He told the young soldier yes, it was true. Yes, the fallen were still there. Yes, they still protected their brothers and sisters. And yes, if that soldier served with honor, if he watched out for his team, if he completed his mission and brought everyone home. Then one day, if the worst happened, he too would join the ranks of the Guardians. He too would become a seventh soldier, watching over those who came after. The cycle would continue. The fallen protecting the living. The dead serving the living. The eternal mission of soldiers who never truly left the battlefield. And somewhere, in jungles and mountains and deserts around the world, Daniel Cooper and Miguel Ramos and thousands of other fallen soldiers stood watch. They moved in the shadows. They appeared when needed. They saved lives and completed missions and made sure that their brothers and sisters came home. The mission roster might say 6. But 7 always came back. Always. Because death ends a life, not a service. Because soldiers take care of their own, in this world. And the next. Because some bonds are stronger than death, deeper than the grave, eternal as the mission itself. Welcome to the real conflict zone, where the impossible becomes real, where the dead protect the living, and where the seventh soldier stands eternal watch. This is the truth that soldiers know but rarely speak. This is the secret we carry. This is the legacy of the fallen. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories that will challenge everything you think you know about reality. Write down your suggestions in the comment box about what types of stories you want to hear next. What mysteries should we explore? What truths should we uncover? What legends should we investigate? Until next time, remember this, you are never truly alone. The fallen walk with us. The dead protect the living. And somewhere, on every battlefield, in every moment of danger, the seventh soldier stands ready. Ready to fight. Ready to protect. Ready to make sure everyone comes home. Honor the fallen by living well. Remember them by serving others. Carry their legacy forward by being the kind of person worth protecting. And know the bonds we share with those who served before us. Death is not the end for a soldier, it's just a change in assignment. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. And if you ever feel like someone's watching your back when no one's there, don't dismiss it. That's the seventh soldier. That's the fallen keeping their promise. That's eternity in action. This is Captain Marcus Reed, signing off. But the mission never truly ends. And neither do we. 10 years after his retirement, Marcus received a call that would bring everything full circle. It came in the middle of the night, which was fitting. Colonel Hendricks, now General Hendricks, was on the line, and her voice carried the weight of urgency that Marcus remembered from his active duty days. Captain Reed, we have a situation. I need you to come back in. Just for a consultation. Marcus sat up in bed, his wife stirring beside him. General, I've been retired for a decade. Whatever it is, you have younger, sharper minds to handle it. Not for this. We have a team missing in San Cristobal. They were running an extraction operation, similar to the one you ran 12 years ago. They missed their extraction window. No communication for 72 hours. Search and rescue teams have found nothing. Hendricks paused. But there's been a sighting A local villager reported seeing American soldiers moving through the jungle, and he said there were 7 of them. The mission roster only had 6. Marcus felt ice water run through his veins. You think Cooper's with them? I think something is happening that you understand better than anyone else. I need you to come in. We're putting together a rescue operation, and I want you to brief the team. Tell them what you know. Tell them what to look for. Marcus arrived at the Pentagon 2 days later. The briefing room was packed with high-ranking officers, intelligence analysts, and a rescue team that looked impossibly young to Marcus's eyes. Had he ever been that young? Had he ever had that look of invincibility that came from not yet understanding what the world could do to you? General Hendricks introduced him without preamble. This is Captain Marcus Reed, retired. He has specialized knowledge of operations in San Cristobal and related phenomena. Captain, the floor is yours. Marcus stood up and looked at the assembled faces. How much should he tell them? How much would they believe? He decided to trust them with the truth. 12 years ago, I led a mission into San Cristobal. 6 operators went in. 7 came back. The 7th was Private First Class Daniel Cooper, who had been killed on a previous mission 18 months earlier. Since then, there have been dozens of confirmed sightings of fallen soldiers appearing during combat operations to assist active teams. We call it the 7th soldier phenomenon. The room was silent. Marcus could see skepticism on some faces, curiosity on others, and on a few, recognition. Some of these people had heard the stories. Some had maybe even experienced it themselves. The team you're trying to rescue, their mission went dark in the same region where Cooper was killed. If he's with them, if any of our fallen are with them, it means they're in extreme danger. It means they need protection beyond what they can provide for themselves. And it means they're still alive and still fighting. A young lieutenant raised his hand. Sir, with all respect, are you saying we should be looking for ghosts? I'm saying you should be looking for evidence that your missing team is being helped by forces you won't understand. Look for signs of 7 people when there should be 6. Look for tactical decisions that seem impossibly lucky. Look for soldiers who survive situations they shouldn't have survived. Marcus pulled up a map of San Cristobal on the screen. And look here, in this valley. It's where Cooper died. It's where he keeps coming back. If your team is anywhere, there. The rescue operation launched 24 hours later. Marcus wasn't allowed to go, too old. Too far from active service, too much of a liability. But they gave him access to the command center, where he could monitor the operation in real time through satellite feeds and drone footage. The rescue team inserted at dawn, 6 operators led by a captain named Elena Vasquez. She was 35, sharp-eyed, and had the kind of calm competence that reminded Marcus of Torres. Her team moved through the jungle with practiced efficiency, heading toward the valley Marcus had indicated. Marcus watched the feeds, his heart pounding. He hadn't felt this kind of tension since his active duty days. Hours passed. The rescue team covered miles of difficult terrain. And then, as they approached the valley, Captain Vasquez's voice came over the radio, tight with controlled excitement. Command, we have visual on the missing team. 6 personnel, all ambulatory, moving toward our position. They appear to be under pursuit. Multiple hostiles, estimate 24. We're moving to assist. Captain Vasquez, Marcus said into the command channel, do you see anyone else with them? Any extra personnel? There was a pause. Then, sir, there's something strange. On our thermals, I'm getting 7 heat signatures with the missing team. But visual count shows only 6. The 7th signature keeps flickering. Like it's there and not there. Marcus felt his pulse spike. That's him. That's Cooper. He's protecting them. Sir, I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You just need to trust that your missing team has guardian angel. You can't see. Now go get them out of there. The next 30 minutes were chaos. The rescue team engaged the pursuing hostiles while the missing team ran for the extraction point. Drone footage showed the firefight in grainy real time. Muzzle flashes in the jungle, figures moving between trees, the organized chaos of combat. And occasionally, on the thermal imaging, that 7th heat signature appeared, always in the right place at the right time, always protecting the team. Captain Vasquez's voice came over the radio, breathless but professional. Contact right flank. Hostile neutralized. Who took that shot? Marcus knew. He'd seen it happen before. Cooper was there, invisible to the living but deadly to anyone who threatened his team. The extraction helicopter arrived, and the teams piled in, the missing operators, exhausted and wounded but alive, and the rescue team, still processing what they'd just experienced. As the helicopter lifted off, Marcus watched the thermal feed one last time. That 7th heat signature stood alone in the clearing, watching the helicopter depart. Then it faded, and the valley was empty. The missing team was debriefed over the next week. Their story was extraordinary. They'd been compromised during their initial mission, forced to go to ground in the jungle, pursued by hostile forces for 3 days. They should have been captured or killed. But according to every team member, they'd had help. Lieutenant David Ramirez, the team leader, sat across from Marcus in an interview room, his eyes haunted but clear. There was someone else with us, sir. I know how it sounds. I know what it looks like. But I'm telling you, there was a 7th person. He led us through terrain we couldn't navigate ourselves. He warned us about ambushes. He saved us, sir. Multiple times. Describe him, Marcus said quietly. Young. Early 20s. Dark eyes. There was a scar through his left eyebrow. He moved like he'd been doing this his whole life. And the strangest thing, he never spoke. He'd just appear when we needed him, show us where to go, then disappear again. Marcus pulled out a photograph. The same one he'd looked at so many times over the past 12 years. Is this him? Ramirez stared at the photo, and his hands started shaking. That's him. Exactly. Who is he? Private First Class Daniel Cooper. He was killed in San Cristobal 13 years ago. His body was recovered and buried at Arlington. But apparently, death didn't end his service. Ramirez sat back, processing this information. I should be freaking out right now. I should be questioning my sanity. But somehow, it makes sense. The way he moved, the way he knew the terrain, the way he seemed to understand what we needed before we did. He was looking out for us. Like a guardian. That's exactly what he is. What they all are. The fallen soldiers who can't let go. Who won't let go. Because the mission isn't over for them. It won't be over until every last soldier comes home safe. The rescue operation's success led to a quiet change in how the military handled the 7th soldier phenomenon. It was no longer classified and buried. Instead, it became an acknowledged reality, something spoken about in certain circles, respected and honored. The files Marcus had been keeping for years were officially archived. Stories from dozens of teams were collected, documented, preserved. But they didn't publicize it. This wasn't something for press releases or public consumption. This was something kept within the military community, a truth that soldiers shared with each other. Passed down from generation to generation. The seventh soldier became part of military lore, but lore that everyone knew was real. Marcus became the unofficial keeper of these stories. Soldiers would reach out to him, sharing their experiences, seeking validation, looking for understanding. He collected each story carefully, treating them with the reverence they deserved. These weren't just ghost stories. They were testimonies of eternal service, proof that the bonds between soldiers transcended death itself. One evening, 5 years after the rescue operation, Marcus received a visitor at his home. It was Captain Elena Vasquez, now a major, and she looked troubled. "Sir, I need to talk to someone who'll understand. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane." Marcus poured her a cup of coffee and sat down. "Major, I've spent the last 15 years collecting stories about dead soldiers protecting living ones. Trust me, I can handle insane." Vasquez smiled despite her obvious distress. "I've been having dreams about that mission where we rescued Ramirez's team. But in the dreams, I see more than I saw in real life. I see Cooper, I know it's him now, from the photos you showed us. I see him moving through the jungle, taking out hostiles, protecting the team. And in the dreams, he's not alone." Marcus leaned forward. "Who else do you see?" "Other soldiers. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. All moving through the jungle, all protecting. Different teams, all fighting their own eternal mission. It's like there's a whole army of the dead out there, sir. Fighting alongside the living. And they're all connected somehow. All part of the same mission." "I believe you," Marcus said simply. "I've had similar dreams. I think they're showing us the truth. The real truth, beyond what we can see with our eyes. The fallen aren't scattered. They're organized. They're still a unit. Still following orders. Still completing objectives. But whose orders? Who's commanding them?" Marcus had thought about this question for years. "I don't know. Maybe they're commanding themselves. Maybe there's no hierarchy in death, just purpose. Or maybe..." He hesitated, then continued. "Maybe someone who understood sacrifice and service and duty is watching over all of us. Maybe the seventh soldier isn't just one ghost. Maybe it's the manifestation of every soldier who ever gave their life for others." Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "That's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Most truths are." Over the following years, the reports continued to come in. The seventh soldier phenomenon wasn't limited to San Cristobal anymore. Sightings occurred in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Africa, Eastern Europe, anywhere American soldiers operated in dangerous conditions. Different faces. Different uniforms, but the same pattern. Fallen soldiers protecting living ones. The dead serving the living. Marcus compiled it all, building what he called the Archive of the Fallen. Thousands of pages of testimony, photographs, video evidence, analysis. It was his life's work now, ensuring that these stories weren't lost, that the service of the fallen was recognized and remembered. He gave lectures at military academies, not officially sanctioned but quietly encouraged. Young cadets and officers would listen, wide-eyed, as Marcus told them about the eternal mission. Some were skeptical. Most were moved. All of them left with a deeper appreciation for the soldiers who'd come before them, and the knowledge that if they fell in service to their country, their service wouldn't end. Marcus's wife, Sarah, watched him dedicate his life to this work with patience and understanding. She'd been a military spouse long enough to understand that some missions never truly ended. One evening, as Marcus worked late on the archive, she brought him tea and sat down beside him. "You're not just documenting this for other people, are you?" she asked gently. "You're documenting it for yourself. Making sure that when your time comes, you'll be remembered. That your service will continue." Marcus looked at her, this woman who'd stood by him through deployments and dangers and the strange journey into the supernatural that his life had become. "I'm making sure that everyone who serves knows their sacrifice matters. Not just in life, but beyond. That death doesn't end the mission. That we're all part of something eternal. And when you join them, when you become one of the 7th soldiers, then I'll watch over the next generation. I'll protect them like Cooper protected me. Like Ramos. And all the others have protected countless soldiers. I'll continue to serve, just in a different capacity." He took her hand. "But not for a long time, I hope. I'm not ready to leave you yet." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Good. Because I'm not ready to let you go. Though I suspect when the time comes, you'll make an excellent guardian angel." Marcus lived to be 87 years old. He saw his children grow up, watched his grandchildren graduate from college, and held his first great-grandchild in his arms. He published a book about the 7th soldier phenomenon that became required reading in certain military circles. He traveled the world, speaking to soldiers, collecting stories, preserving the legacy of the fallen. And through it all, he felt them watching. Cooper, Ramos, the hundreds of others whose names filled his archive. They were always there, a presence just beyond perception, a warmth in the corner of his eye. Watching. Protecting. Waiting. When Marcus finally fell ill, it was quick pneumonia that his aging body couldn't fight. He went into the hospital on a Tuesday, still the worst day for anything important, he thought with grim humor, and by Friday, the doctors were talking about comfort care and saying goodbye. His family gathered around his bed. Sarah held his hand, tears streaming down her face but her voice steady as she told him how much she loved him, how proud she was of him. His children each said their farewells. His grandchildren too young to fully understand but old enough to know. This was important, to know that saying goodbye mattered. And then, as the morphine took hold and the world started to fade, Marcus saw them standing at the foot of his bed, just as his father-in-law's Marine buddies had stood at his. Cooper, young and smiling. Ramos, with that eagle and snake tattoo visible on his forearm. And behind them, dozens more. A company of fallen soldiers, all in dress uniform, all standing at attention. "Are you ready, sir?" Cooper asked, his voice clear and strong. Marcus looked back at his family one last time. Sarah was holding his hand, but she couldn't see what he saw. None of them could. This moment was between soldiers, between brothers bound by service and sacrifice. "I'm ready," Marcus whispered. Cooper nodded. "Then welcome home, Captain. Your next mission is about to begin." Marcus Reed died peacefully on a Friday evening, surrounded by family, with honors and recognition and love. His funeral was held at Arlington National Cemetery, with full military honors. The honor guard folded the flag with precise ceremony. The rifle salute echoed across the endless rows of white stones. Taps played, that mournful melody that every soldier knows, that every family of a fallen soldier remembers forever. But those who knew the truth, who understood what Marcus had spent his life documenting, saw something else. As the honor guard stood at attention and the chaplain spoke the final words, 7 shadows moved among the headstones. 7 fallen soldiers, standing witness to the passing of one of their own. 7 guardians, welcoming their commander to the eternal mission. And in the months and years that followed, new reports started coming in. Soldiers operating in dangerous territory, facing impossible odds, being helped by an unseen presence. A veteran operator with steel gray hair who appeared during firefights, who led teams to safety, who seemed to know the terrain perfectly. Captain Marcus Reed had joined the ranks of the 7th Soldier. Death had not ended his service. It had simply changed his assignment. He was watching over the living now, protecting them as Cooper and Ramos and countless others had protected him. The cycle continued. The eternal mission went on. 20 years after Marcus Reed's death, a young lieutenant named James Cooper, Daniel Cooper's nephew, named in honor of the uncle he'd never met, was deployed to San Cristobal. His team was running a humanitarian mission, providing medical care to villages in the interior. But intelligence suggested that hostile forces were active in the region. On the 3rd day of the mission, James's team was ambushed while returning from a remote village. They were pinned down, outnumbered, taking casualties. James, wounded and running low on ammunition, was certain this was where his story would end. Where he would join his uncle in whatever came after. Then he saw them. 2 soldiers moving through the jungle with perfect coordination. One was young, with dark eyes and a scar through his left eyebrow. The other was older, with steel, gray hair and the bearing of a senior officer. They moved like they'd been fighting together for years, covering each other, taking out hostiles with precision and efficiency. The ambush broke. The surviving hostile forces retreated. And James's team was able to reach their extraction point, bruised and bloodied but alive. All of them alive, because of 2 soldiers who shouldn't have been there. As they waited for the extraction helicopter, James approached the older soldier. "Sir, I don't know who you are, but thank you. You saved our lives." The older soldier smiled, and there was something familiar in that smile, something that reminded James of his grandfather's old war stories. "Just doing our job, Lieutenant. Same as always. Can I know your names? I want to include you in my report. You deserve recognition. No reports necessary. No recognition required." The older soldier glanced at the younger one, who nodded. "We're just watching out for our own. Making sure everyone comes home." "But who are you?" The younger soldier spoke for the first time. "I'm Private First Class Daniel Cooper. And this is Captain Marcus Reed. We served together, a long time ago. And we're still serving. We'll always be serving." James felt his blood run cold. His uncle. And the man his family had told him about, the commander who'd written that letter to his parents after his uncle's death, who'd spent his life documenting the 7th Soldier phenomenon. Both of them dead. Both of them standing right in front of him. You're the 7th Soldier. Both of you. We're the 7th, and the 8th, and the 100th, Reed said. There are as many of us as there are fallen soldiers who can't let go of the mission. Who won't let go of their brothers and sisters. We're everywhere soldiers fight and die. We've always been there. We'll always be there. The sound of the extraction helicopter grew louder. Cooper looked up at the sky, then back at James. Tell my family I'm at peace. Tell them I'm doing what I was meant to do. And take care of yourself, nephew. It's a dangerous world, but you're not alone in it. None of you are. The helicopter landed, and James's team began loading up. When James looked back, the two soldiers were gone. Just empty jungle where they'd been standing. But James felt them. Watching, felt their presence like a warm hand on his shoulder, and he knew with absolute certainty that he would see them again. When he needed them most. When another soldier needed them most. Because that was the truth that Marcus Reed had spent his life documenting, that Daniel Cooper had proven with his death and resurrection, that every soldier who'd ever fallen in service had shown with their eternal vigilance. Death ends a life, but it doesn't end service. The mission goes on. The watch continues. The fallen protect the living, from now until the end of time. Welcome to the real conflict zone, where the line between life and death is thinner than you think, where service transcends mortality, and where the seventh soldier stands eternal watch. This is the truth that soldiers know but the world doesn't understand. This is the secret we carry. The legacy we preserve, the mission that never ends. Every soldier who falls becomes a guardian. Every sacrifice becomes eternal protection. Every death becomes a transformation from mortal warrior to immortal protector. That's the real meaning of all gave some gave all. Those who gave all are still giving. Still serving. Still fighting. Still watching over their brothers and sisters in arms. So the next time you hear a story about impossible luck in combat, about soldiers surviving situations they shouldn't have survived, about that feeling of being protected by something unseen, believe it. Because it's real. The seventh soldier is real. The fallen are watching. And they will never, ever abandon their mission. If you made it to the end of this story, then you understand something most people don't. You understand that there are truths in this world that go beyond what we can see and touch. You understand that love and loyalty and duty can transcend death itself. You understand that the bonds between soldiers are eternal. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more stories that will challenge everything you think you know about reality. Stories about the impossible. Stories about the supernatural. Stories about the thin places where our world touches something beyond. And most importantly, stories about ordinary people, soldiers, civilians, anyone, who discover that death is not the end, but a transformation. Write down your suggestions in the comment box below. What stories do you want to hear next? What mysteries should we explore? Should we dive deeper into military supernatural phenomena? Should we explore other kinds of eternal missions, doctors who still heal, teachers who still guide, parents who still protect? What truths are you ready to discover? Remember, you are never alone. The fallen walk with us. The dead protect the living. The eternal watch continues. And somewhere, on every battlefield, in every moment of danger, the seventh soldier stands ready. Ready to fight. Ready to protect. Ready to make sure everyone comes home. Honor the fallen by living well. Remember them by serving others. Carry their legacy forward by being the kind of person worth protecting. And know, with absolute certainty, that when your time comes, whether on a battlefield or in a hospital bed or anywhere else, they'll be waiting to welcome you home. This is the real conflict zone. This is where the impossible becomes real. This is where death loses its finality and service becomes eternal. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing. Thank you for carrying these stories forward. Until next time, stay safe. Stay vigilant. And if you ever feel like someone's watching your back, when no one's there, say thank you. Because the seventh soldier is real, and they're watching over you. Take care, everyone. And remember, the mission never truly ends. Neither do we. Goodbye for now. But we'll meet again, in this world or the next. Because that's what soldiers do. We watch over each other. Forever.